Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Back in the early decades of the century, we had the Wisconsin idea. The Wisconsin idea was, of course, La Follette and the progressives. Now, these were not your Woodrow Wilson fake Wall Street progressives. This was something real, something that reflected the continuing populist tradition of the Populist Party, the Omaha Convention of 1890. Some of that was still alive up there in the dairy farm belt of Wisconsin. So the Wisconsin idea was, of course, things like the primary, the recall, various measures of political democratization. And they were important in their time. But now we need the question of economic rights, the Franklin D. Roosevelt Economic Bill of Rights from that fateful State of the Union address, January 1944, the economic rights of the American people that the Koch Brigade denies. Now, there is an interesting question here. The Tea Party, we're seeing reports now that the Tea Party may be forming to counter-demonstrate against the forces of labor. Now, it's very interesting. The Tea Party, coming into existence a little bit less than 2 years ago, at the beginning had certain limited mass strike qualities to it, but it was always crippled by the reactionary ideological matrix, by the social composition of the movement, which was very narrow, and then it was completely taken over by the Koch brothers, by Americans for Prosperity, by Richard Mellon Scaife. You can remember the first Tea Party here in Washington, D.C., the Competitive Enterprise Institute of Richard Mellon Scaife was the mother of the demonstration. You had the Heartland Institute. You had the Manhattan Institute. You had all these Republican think tanks, Republican public relations firms. Your K Street Power Alley Republican operatives were there. So from the very beginning, the Republicans were all over it like an ape. And can you believe Dick Armey, the discredited hack from the Newt Gingrich regime, coming forward, trying to reinvent himself, proclaiming himself a political virgin, and now an exponent of the Tea Party. This is, in order to believe this, you've got to be so stupid. Now, the question for the Tea Party is, are you scabs? Is that what you're going to do? Will you do that? You're going to be organized into strike breakers, and you're going to go and beat up the teachers at the Wisconsin State Capitol? I hope not. I think that would be tragic. But if it should happen, this would then lead in the direction we saw in Central Europe between World War I and World War II. That could become very, very ugly. So let's hope not. Now, as far as Koch looks at that, and he's going to say, well, if I can get some strikebreakers out there, I'm glad to shell out. Right? Back in the 1930s, you had these groups, the Silver Shirts, you had the Crusaders, you had the Sentinels of the Republic. Some of them were paid by Pew of Sunoco, Sun Oil. Some of them were paid by the Pitcairn family of Pittsburgh Plate Glass. Some of them were paid by the DuPont family. Some of them were paid by other Wall Street figures. There was also a group called the Southern Committee for the Constitution, or the Southern Committee for the Defense of the Constitution. The idea that that being on strike for labor rights is somehow anti-constitutional. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is what we hear from Limbaugh. Limbaugh starts off today citing the People's Daily World. He wants to red bait the labor demonstrations in Wisconsin. The People's Daily World is now a publication for geriatrics. It circulates in old folks' homes. This is ridiculous. The People's Daily World supports the strike, so Limbaugh wants to say they're all communists. Teachers, according to Limbaugh, teachers are rich. Now, remember, everybody knows the reality. Public employees get paid less, and they're willing to get paid less because they get somewhat better benefits. And they do have unions, right? If you want to get some benefits, then get yourself a union. Organize a union. Don't demand that they come down to the lower level. Get yourself up to the higher level. Misery loves company, but only up to a point. The question for Limbaugh is, are the teachers as rich as the Goldman Sachs executives, the guys over at J.P. Morgan, Pandit the Bandit at Citibank? Remember, Wall Street paid itself $150 billion in bonuses, $150 billion last year. What are these teachers getting? They're getting chicken feed. In the opinion of Limbaugh, the strikers, the demonstrators in Wisconsin are the Muslim Brotherhood. They use children as human shields. Limbaugh says that the demonstration in Wisconsin is a violation of states' rights. Oh, I'm sorry. Obama's statement about this is a violation of states' rights. Limbaugh says Obama wants a civil war so he can be Lincoln and then give the Madison address. This guy's raving. He's off his rocker. What you see here is the naked, hideous face of class hatred, class war. As soon as the labor movement speaks up, the terror, the rage grips these people. It's unbelievable. So we also have Limbaugh telling us, Limbaugh sitting down there in his pampered luxury. Public sector unions are parasites. The firemen, the policemen, the teachers, and the state workers at the Department of Motor Vehicles are all parasites. Oh my Lord, Limbaugh is ready for Bellevue and Creedmoor out on the island. This is obviously it shows you that they've completely lost their moorings. So the other thing I would just point out concerning Obama, the statement by Obama was so weak and diluted and lukewarm. This was basically saying, well, I suppose I'm on their side, but gosh. In other words, Obama's position is basically, leave union busting to me. I will bust unions effectively. It takes a little while, but it's very effective. I give them that slow, deadly boa constrictor with constant doses of poison. Whereas Walker comes out and says, guess what? I'm smashing your union right now, today. He forces them to fight. So the Obama, Cuomo, Jerry Brown school of union busting is ultimately more effective, although it costs a little bit more and it takes a little bit longer. You cannot have any confidence in these people. Obama accuses Scott Walker, the state Republican governor, of unleashing an assault on unions in pushing emergency legislation that would nullify collective bargaining agreements that affect most public employees, including teachers. Oh, I'm expecting the Wall Street Journal to come out yelling about the sanctity of contracts. Capitalism is based on the sanctity of contracts. How about labor contracts? Does that include labor contracts? Oh, no, not those. Those are in a different class. The hypocrisy, the double standard. It's unbelievable. It's transparent. One moment of honesty coming from Ed Schultz was that he said that the demonstrators in Wisconsin, when they heard this languid, namby-pamby statement by Obama, they said, but basically he's supporting the strikebreakers. Obama's basically on the side of the strikebreakers, although he won't say so. That's correct. He is. Obama is the strikebreaker in chief, more effective than a little tin pot like Walker. So the point is, you want to have a front of the political working class and its allies against the Democratic Party, against the Republican Party, and, of course, against the entire ruling class, against the Wall Street financial barons and against the paid ideologues. You're now going to have people coming on television and saying, yeah, but us independents, we think that there really is a budget problem and the unions really should have sacrifice. All right, fine. Let's have sacrifice, guys. Let's start with Wall Street. So far, they've sacrificed nothing. Obama gave them the Bush tax cuts for the rich. We want the Wall Street sales tax. That's the answer to all of these things. You go into these arguments with the Wall Street sales tax in your pocket, and you win. If you don't have an alternative, you lose. In other words, if you don't like what the government is doing, are you ready to become the government? Because if you're not, you're a loser. If you're not ready to become the government, then Obama and Cuomo and Jerry Brown are. You can knock out Walker, fine. But then what are you going to get? So this also involves this dynamic inside the Democratic Party. Now, remember, we would welcome a primary challenge to Obama for basically any reason, any reasonable reason inside the Democratic Party. And the one person that has been focused on in this regard is Feingold. Not that we're going to make Feingold a repository of virtue, but structurally, Senator Feingold, voted out of office, has now come forward as the head of a support committee for the demonstrators. The force of events could force him into challenging Obama if Obama remains on the path of betraying the people in Madison, Wisconsin. So we'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.